Hi, Ben from Rally here.
And I'm Kyle.
We're excited to showcase for y'all 5 social entrepreneurs that have come through our most recent cohort and 3 panels that demonstrate Central Florida is becoming an international hub for social enterprise. Our first enterprise is Sanad.
Yeah, I really love Sanad. Sanad is an international team. Reem is from Syria and Suzanne is from Indianapolis, Indiana. And the problem that they're tackling around helping Syrian women refugees living in Turkey solve or deal with mental health issues is really cool.
Enjoy Sanad.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. I'm the co-founder of Sanad.
And I'm Reem. I'm the founder. I'm a Syrian refugee in Turkey. There are over 3.5 million of us here, and 80% of refugee women in Turkey got depression and PTSD. Despite the high demand, there is a big lack of secure psychological support.
Sanad is a digital community where women can affordably, reliably, and safely access psychosocial support. We provide a platform where Syrian women can connect with other trained women anonymously without judgment. Our ask is for corporate partners, additionally funding.
Because we believe with mental health improvements, they will get improvements with their physical health too, and their life with their friends and families. Thank you for listening. We're looking forward to have a conversation with you.
That Sanad team is inspiring. They do what social entrepreneurs do, which is attack difficult problems with optimism and persistence. I'm excited to see what happens in Turkey because they're there. And it got us thinking about what social enterprise looks like around the world.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, the next panel coming up is a collection of friends and people with deep subject matter expertise around what entrepreneurship looks like in an ecosystem and those components. And also the cool thing is they're from the UK, the United States, Canada, and Israel. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, well, let's get this started. The first thing I want to welcome everybody to this panel. It's awesome to have such an esteemed international crew of people. But before we do, I want to introduce each of you. First, we have Dorothy Spence from Canada, founder of Imagino Ventures. Hello. We have Simon Beasley from the UK, Director of Business Development with Initiatives for Entrepreneur CIC. We have Dr. Jonathan Mervis from Israel, Senior Lecturer of Social Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And then last but not least, we have Mark Brewer from the United States, President, CEO of the Central Florida Foundation. So welcome, everyone. The question that I want to put before the panel, anybody's free to jump out at it, is we're specifically trying to understand what are the key components that you would say that are necessary to creating a vibrant early stage social venture ecosystem. Each of you come from different places, and so we want you to talk about what that looks like for you in your region of the world. How about Mark, you jump off and sit.
Okay. So the world is changing as it always is, and social enterprise is something that has attracted a lot of attention, but it doesn't happen on its own. Without the right culture, without a networking component, without the ability to accelerate businesses, make certain they have the mentoring and the assistance they need, whether that's co-working space or acceleration. Capital funding is a necessary and important component of it. And more, because social measures are critical to the balance sheet and social measures are equal, an educational component that helps entrepreneurs understand how to balance those two, where one doesn't get away from the other one. Those are all important factors in the ecosystem.
That's awesome. Dorothy, what do you think?
Well, I feel very fortunate to be sitting up here in Canada because our government has made a significant commitment in terms of funding and capacity building for social enterprises. And I have to say I love that. I'm really aligned with that because as Mark said, most of the clients that we work with are millennials and Gen Zs, and their level of interest in social innovation is much, much greater than the old baby boomers like me. They actually don't believe it's a nice to have, it's a must have. And I can feel that passion and that acceleration in that mindset even more prevalent as we go through this shift in humanity. So the Canadian government has made an $805 million investment in social innovation spread over 10 years. And specifically over these, they're rolling out right now for the next 2 years, capacity building and investment readiness funds, 50 million. And 50 million spread over a population of 36 million in a vast country like ours is significant, but it is just really kind of a drop in the bucket. But I believe the future really belongs to this concept of how are we going to share, where we are definitely going to be moving even more into a shared economy as our economy shrinks, which is inevitable. So how are we going to share financial resources? And these are the things that I believe are significantly important for ecosystems. And when we talk about ecosystems, I want you to keep in mind nature. What would nature do in all of these instances? So as in an ecosystem, if there was some sort of a major threat that was put into a natural ecosystem, it is a natural thing that would happen, that they would share the resources. So incubators, accelerators, sharing financial resources, new models of funding of these businesses or enterprises or ventures that are coming up, which is going to be way more entrepreneur and crowdsource funding. Access to social capital. So the relationships, the networks, we are very connected. If there's one thing the pandemic has taught us, it's that. And then how do we share our pragmatic capital? How do we build collective capability in this very complex way of operating a business and very necessary and new emerging business models? And also, how can we share our human capitals? How can we share common CFOs and all those more specialized resources?
Yes. Awesome. Thank you very much. Simon, what do you think?
Well, Carl, when you initially set the question, I wrote down kind of 5 things that I felt underpin the infrastructure, but I forgot the 2 key ones really for me in the UK, which probably sets us apart from a lot of other countries. We have 2 key pieces of legislation that support social entrepreneurs in the UK. And one of them is that we have our own business structure. We have the CIC, the Community Interest Company structure, which allows us to still be entrepreneurial, but set ourselves apart from a fully profit-making business. And it has a national regulator that makes sure we do what we say we do, and we can gain or lose that regulator. The other thing the other key piece of legislation is we have a thing called the Social Value Act, which requires any business that's doing business with government, either local or national government, to prove that they support economic, environmental, social initiatives. So what that's helped do is allow a lot of our social enterprises to get on the supply chain of local government and central government. But it's also made big corporates think, actually, we need to behave more responsibly, and we perhaps need to learn off these guys. So it has helped us get social enterprises onto the supply chains of those larger companies, so they can in turn get on the supply chain of the government and central and local government. I think for us, the key areas is place is a huge thing, and we work internationally. We're just starting to do some work in Ukraine with social entrepreneurs in Ukraine, but actually the heart of what we do is 5 or 10 miles away from our office, and we work with local people, and because we're there and we've been there for 20 years, they trust us, and I think that helps drive that. Word of mouth is a huge thing in our communities around trust, and that's where we pick a lot of our clients up from.
Awesome, thank you very much. Jonathan.
Okay, so here in Israel, we have a void when it comes to definitions. because we don't have any legislation regarding the terminology of social enterprise. In other words, we are still bound by the traditional differentiation between for-profit and non-for-profit. And a social enterprise will therefore follow either one of these models. Either it will be a for-profit or non-for-profit. And as opposed to the UK, where you can be for-profit, but on the other hand, you can get tax relief because of the structures, we don't have that in Israel. And therefore, to a large extent, when it comes to investment in social impact, or what we talk about the ecosystem, this largely depends on what investors perceive to be what we call a social priority. And I think that we're now in a situation of tremendous transformation and flux, because what was called important until COVID-19 may not be important today. And given our change in priorities, therefore, exactly how the ecosystem is going to move to the forward, we don't really know. I mean, I think that critical issues on the table, for instance, the issues of finance, which was mentioned before, networks, mentoring, etc. But this is all on the assumption that future investors are going to invest in social enterprise. Now, when we talk about social priority, for instance, in this country, we now have a population of close to 9 million people. We have 1 million people out of work. 1 million people out of work when prior 6 weeks ago, we had about only 2% or 3% out of work. So national priority now is finding jobs for people. And therefore, I believe very strongly that if social enterprise does not go in the direction of employment, because ultimately it doesn't matter after lockdown, there will be people, of course, who will turn to the workplace, but it's going to take years to get people back into the workforce. This is going to be our national priority, which it wasn't before. A second issue is the whole issue of green, for instance, and ecology. Whether it's 6 weeks ago to buy something which was made of plastic and to put it in a certain way, and etc., one was very careful because, of course, we're very worried about the future ecology of the world. Well, today, plastic is the best thing that you can ever have, because if you have something of plastic, if it's plastic gloves or a mask or whatever the case, not a mask, of course, is completely locked, but any garb which will ensure that there's no penetration of any virus, then it is something that everybody wants to have in their wardrobe. So I think to a large extent, a critical piece of the ecology is what I call social priority. And if social entrepreneurs are cognizant of what social priorities are, they're going to get funding. If not, I think that there's going to be very little funding, and therefore, for the next 2 or 3 years, social enterprise, which was on a previous, I would say a previous direction, may have to change direction in order to survive.
Anybody in the closing minutes have any thoughts on that? I know Mark, as someone with an investment background, I'm curious what you think about what Dr. Mervis just said.
So I agree that there's going to have to be dramatic changes. There will be for all business. This is the time. This is the time to actually change things, to be innovative. And from an investor's point of view, while I agree with Jonathan that the value proposition has to be correct, I think there are parts of the world in which the social change and positive social change will attract investors who recognize that the kind of returns that they were getting pre-virus are not the kind of returns they're likely to get on the other side. And so the social return might actually become more important to them. But the value proposition piece is critical. We've got to find new ways to do things, and we can't return to doing things the way we did before the virus.
I mean, I just want to home in on it, and that's really basically where social investment is going in Israel. Because basically people have realized that if we don't use technology to meet the immediate challenges, which are the health challenges, which we're talking about educational challenges, then we're just not going to make it. In other words, which until now, social innovation was perceived to be a luxury. In many areas, social innovations now seem to be existentially important. And as such, given the challenges that we're facing, and I strongly, strongly agree with you that in terms of opportunity, we're in a very exciting world. The question on the table is, can we budding young social entrepreneurs get a sense of what the opportunities are and make the most of them?
Dorothy, Simon.
Can't argue with that. No.
I feel like you two are chomping at the bit. Let's talk about it.
No, I was agreeing. I think, you know, one of the important things that we don't have a luxury of funding, and we don't have a great kind of philanthropic background. I've struggled to say that in the UK. So we push all our budding social entrepreneurs to do business, and that is that, you know, the only way our organisations survive is to become successful businesses trading off that social mission. It's slightly different in Scotland. Scotland sounds very similar to in Canada, where the Scottish government, they have a separate devolved government in Scotland, but they have been very supportive of social enterprise. We're sometimes a little bit jealous of that, but actually, I believe that some of our social enterprises are much more sustainable because they've been driven down a business route rather than relying on funding that they have to keep applying for every now and again.
Yeah. So in closing, we give Dorothy.
I just wanted to say that in terms of investment, I'm a venture partner with a new venture fund that one of the co-founders is Yvonne Chenard. And it's a completely different investment model where it's very mutualistic, and it actually depends on a number of businesses collaborating. And some of our measurement that we have for this fund is return to the planet and return to the ecosystem. So there are capital models starting to emerge that are they're like little sprouts coming out of the ground right now. But they're very hopeful, and I do want to share that with the fellows in the Rally program that, you know, ESG funds I think are going to continue to have a lot of momentum, and there are new types of funds that are starting to emerge because humanity is saying we need change, and capital markets are going to be one of the big catalysts for that change. Awesome. Way faster than a government will respond.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate all of you joining us today. It's really cool to hear the varying perspectives from around the world, and also really the similarities too. I mean, there's some similar things going on, and I've learned a lot too today just listening to you folks talk. So once again, I appreciate your time.
Carl, can I just have a message to the fellows?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to tell you guys, and I can't see you, but I can just imagine you sitting in front of you. I just want to tell you I'm very jealous of you. And I'm very jealous of you for two reasons. The first is I teach social entrepreneurship, you guys do it. In other words, there's a mega difference between people who talk about it, people who do, and people who make change. So you are privileged. But the second thing that you're privileged is that we are literally at a very, very different point in the world. In fact, I think 2020 is going to go down almost to 1945 in terms of the world changed course. And you guys are in the driving seat, and how you change the world and drive the world forward, that is going to be the world of the future. So I'm jealous that you have this opportunity, that you are the guys who are going to be taking the risk, and I wish you well. And it's amazing that you're in this program, and hopefully everything that you've set out to do will be realized in the future, together with all the tremendous support that you get from the program, your mentors, and directors and educators, etc.
That's awesome.
And just to reiterate and emphasize that, we believe the future belongs to conscious business, and please keep going.
Awesome. Thanks guys for showing up today.